Disney fans and That Park Place reporters have been saying for years that Genie Plus was destroying the Walt Disney Company Parks and Experiences division. Now, Lightning Lane Multipass is here to fix everyone's problems, except that the IT system appears to be broken, the cast members don't know how it runs, and it might be even worse than it was before Genie started. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is theme park expert Mr. VashSky. Vash, can you pick up some ticket books for me the next time you're at Disneyland?
Well, I would if they sold them, but I can go ahead and pick you up a ticket book in the style of the old ticket books. I think like a license plate that's been signed by Bob Gurr. That I can pick you up.
Oh, that would be pretty cool. Have you met Bob Gurr? Man, that guy seems like such a nice guy.
I might have. Very nice gentleman, indeed.
All right. Well, instead of relishing in the wonderful history of the Walt Disney Company, let's talk about the current Walt Disney Company. We're going to go to this story from Blog Mickey, but then we're going to go to a firsthand account of what happens when Disney transitions from Genie Plus to Lightning Lane Multipass, whatever they're calling this thing, in the middle of your trip. Lightning Lane Multipass, first impressions from a day at Disney's Hollywood Studios, app improvements, terrible same-day availability, live in the Orlando area, so not the same experience as the account that we're going to go to. Disney Genie Plus is out, and Lightning Lane Multipass is in. More than just a rebrand, there were some significant under the hood and cosmetic changes to Disney World's skip the line system, and we made our way out to Disney's Hollywood Studios on day one to put it to the test. There's nothing quite like battling the Central Florida summer heat to try and see if you can last longer than your phone's battery. This is a constant complaint. We hear from all guests that you have to be prepared for your phone battery to go out during your day because you have to be on your phone all day long. Vash, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, plenty of thoughts. This whole system has been a disaster from stem to stern. In fact, you can actually see it graphed out via Thrill Data, who has been very kind enough to share some of the metrics and statistics associated with this new system. See right here, this is the Lightning Lane availability map for the first day of rollout. That's July 24th, 2024. And this chart is a little bit confusing, but it's pretty simple once you actually work it out. So you can see the top is time and then separated by attraction. And essentially, if you are seeing a bunch of yellow, orange, and red, particularly on the lower end of that time spectrum, it's basically demonstrating that the return times for those specific attractions are far later in the day, even if it's earlier in the day that you're actually reserving them. So for example, you can see Spaceship Earth right here. The return times available for that past 8 a.m. were basically non-existent for any time before 8 p.m. As you can see, that kind of go along the axis there. So apparently there were a number of attractions that actually had this the same thing happen. So you can see Remy's Ride to Adventure. It essentially wasn't even available to book past, 9:55 a.m. You're lucky if you even got to that at all, and I believe that might be a tier 1 attraction if I'm not mistaken, which is insane. Frozen Ever After, I mean, good luck, essentially. I know it's kind of hard to see on screen right here, but just the availability of all these things is just so horrible. And also too, think about if you're buying this for like a park hopper, for example, right? You essentially have to book out your home park, and then once you have gotten through your first reservation or your first 3 reservations, can you then make subsequent reservations? Well, if the last attraction that you have on there is listed at some later time, and let's say it's at your home park, well, then you're effectively either bound to that park and you can't park up at all, or you just have to let that go and forego the cash that you actually spent for this. And again, this is what, $30 a day per person? This is a horrific system, and apparently we have some first-hand accounts of how this all went.
Yep, that's a very good point, and I recommend going to read Blog Mickey's take on the situation there. I don't know if the writer from Blog Mickey, Mike, decided to take additional people with him to the park, but we do have one where someone that we know spends a lot of money in the parks went, and their stay spanned the end of Genie Plus and the start of Lightning Lane. And let's talk about that. We're going to put a link to this post in the description down below, but let's go through this. This from Doc Epcot at Doc Epcot right here. My guest experience mid-vacation of Disney's first day rollout of MultiPass. One thing I want to add is this is throughout the day getting updates as well. Vash, is that accurate by your understanding?
Yes. This was, I guess, typed out while Doc was actually going through his day. I believe he says later on that he was in line for Tiana's actually while he was writing a lot of this out.
I also say I bear some of the responsibility for not preparing myself for this new system. No, I'm going to say this is Disney's fault because you should not have to have a degree in Disney in order to enjoy these parks, just as you should not have to have your phone with you at all times to enjoy these parks. But the question is, why would Disney dump this new system on resort guests that are already here on vacation? They shouldn't have. That's the point. That's where the frustration comes in and the motivation to get my thoughts on paper, if you will. My experience with MultiPass on July 24th, the first day of implementation. But first, a little preface. July 23rd, I used Genie Plus like I always have in the past without issue. I always purchase the multi-park experience and spend the premium because we always do park hopper tickets starting at 12 a.m. I tried to purchase MultiPass and was refused. Then after multiple attempts at 12:30, early in the morning hours, I finally gave up and called it a night, knowing I would have to get up bright and early before 7 a.m. to begin the arduous process of rushing and booking out the rest of my trip, not knowing what availability would be afforded to me. I'm also going to point out they were passing out flyers in the resorts to try to tell people that Lightning Lane was coming. Lightning Lane MultiPass was coming. But it sounds like all they were doing was handing out flyers because the people running the system were not prepared. So at 6:50 a.m., I awaken. I wait till 7 a.m. to purchase MultiPass. While there was availability at the time, I was frantically looking for a multi-park option like I had just purchased less than 24 hours before, but I could not find it on the page. It didn't exist. Unfortunately, I was unaware that multi-park was baked into the system with one caveat. You have to use your first Lightning Lane in your initial home park before you can book one in a different park that you might hop to. Keep that in mind for a future point. It took Disney's chat service through their app 30 minutes to answer that single question this morning. So it sounds like they weren't trained on that. I tried calling IT services from my resort telephone, but was put on an extended hold. An extended hold while you are getting up at 7 a.m. in order to book this thing, that is not good. Unless IT can fix it, it sounds like they can't do that. I tried to call IT services from my resort telephone, but was put on extended hold. You think they staff up knowing it's a brand new system and there's going to be a ton of questions, but no. And by the time chat got back to me, I already confirmed via X. It was built in, but now it's too late. And most of the tier 1 and 2 rides that we wanted to do were gone with zero availability for later in the day. No drops that I'm aware of. No way to refresh to see if more come back online. That would be incredibly frustrating for me if I was a person that decided to spend this much money at the parks. Vash, do you have any comment?
This is ridiculous. Doc Epcot, I believe he lays it out in this post right here. He was saying at the Grand Floridian. This is
so not a value resort.
Not a value resort. Doc has and I think he says it in this post as well. He has laid down a lot of money for the Walt Disney Company over the years, and he's spending a small fortune on this vacation as well. And to have this level of service, to have this level of almost indignation from the Walt Disney Company when he's attempting to, solve these issues or go through these issues, it is the worst type of Disney experience ever. There was a time when you used to have the white glove treatment where Disney cast members were empowered, but also encouraged to make things right. Here, it was almost like they were apathetic to his needs and his concerns.
So I finally decide to acquiesce and purchase the service. None of the rides are available that we want to do, but there's still a few e-ticket and few second-tier rides that were acceptable. Not our first choice, but acceptable. Not a good sign for Disney, by the way. So right before you hit purchase, more money, it gives you your times. And here's another caveat about park hopping. The times it offered me for one of the second tiers was 9:45 a.m. The second tier ride was almost 2 p.m. and the third Lightning Lane first tier ride was just just before park close. Now, as a park hopper, if you can start booking lightning lanes at another park after your first use at your home park, what good is it if your last lightning lane in your home park doesn't begin till almost park close? By the way, this was for DHS, that's Hollywood Studios, and the lightning lane was for Mickey's Runaway Railroad at approximately 8:30 p.m. When do they start the fireworks around there? I'll explain this point to the manager at Guest Services later on in this post, which she had no recourse for and just looked at me like a deer in headlights. By the way, as I write this, I'm standing in the Tiana queue that I had to come to Magic Kingdom for 1 p.m. virtual queue drop. Mind you, we had no intention of coming back to this park today until much later on, as there's magic hours for deluxe resort guests, which we are a part of. But the day got upended because of the system, and I had to physically come in the park to get this virtual queue. So keep that in mind of the hoops that Disney makes you jump through now as a guest. Remember, all in the name of trying to have magical fun with your family on a very expensive vacation.
So, extra magic hours or whatever they call it now, they're park specific and they're date specific. So you're only going to get extra magic hours on at a particular park. Usually it's either Epcot or Magic Kingdom on certain days. So what he was trying to do was he was trying to go to his home park. I think he was listed as Disney's Hollywood Studios. And then later in the day, go to Magic Kingdom, obviously in order to take advantage of those extra magic hours. And he was essentially either bound to go to Disney's Hollywood Studios because of the late times that he received for a service that he paid for, by the way, or forego it completely if he wanted to take advantage of Magic Kingdom's extra magic hours. So it's like, he was in a very no-win situation there. And again, that's the first day of rollout.
Yep. And I'm going to point out that his Magic Kingdom experience, well, is everything we've come to expect from Tiana's Bayou Adventure at this moment. Update. I am now on the monorail going back to my hotel. I had to pause writing this because while we were in the Tiana queue for close to an hour, the ride shut down for technical difficulties and the queue was empty. You can't make this up. Again, that Disney difference strikes again. I'm having so much fun. Before I go on with my story, the only thing we've accomplished thus far today was Pirates with a 40-minute standby wait. So back to this morning, try to follow me. Original plans were for Animal Kingdom to do a individual lightning lane for Flight of Passage, maybe Expedition Everest, and then go home to the resort and relax at the pool and go back into Magic Kingdom tonight for magic hours. That was the plan, but because of the multipass, it all unraveled. We now leave to go to Magic Kingdom because, again, we need to be physically in the parks to get a virtual queue after 1 p.m. The 7 a.m. virtual queues were long gone, the seconds after the hand strike 7 a.m., but I'm concerned with getting my multipass for the remainder of our trip. Yet another hoop that this asinine behemoth, heartlessly magicless company now makes you jump through. So now I walk into Magic Kingdom at 11 a.m. I send my family off to go to Starbucks to get a drink and something to eat, and I proceed right to Guest Services where the line is huge. Wonder why. First guy at the door to greet me in the plaids has tattoos up and down his arms. Great fifth key experience. Love that presentation for those that represent the company directly to the public at one of the highest levels. I got to say, this might sound judgmental to some people, but I agree with Doc on this. The stance on cast members used to be that they are cast members meant to blend into the show, and now Disney has gone in with a different direction since 2020, with the fifth key being inclusivity. Inclusivity is not wrong, but it was at the cost of the other keys, which one of those was show. And obviously efficiency is not there anymore. It doesn't even matter what the keys are because they've become beholden to that fifth key. Anyway, I asked to see a manager. I'll withhold her name. I explain the entire situation to her respectfully, concisely, and calmly. I tell her we've spent tens of thousands of dollars with the company over the years. This is the kind of thing where it can sound like you're trying to lord over them, but it's also a very realistic statement to hear. If we're speaking about this from a business standpoint, the lifetime spend of a customer is something that Disney should be taking into account, especially if we're in this phase here where they're pushing out all the people who don't have tens of thousands of dollars to spend on the park. They're supposed to be focusing on people like this, but whatever. Not exaggerating, but I probably could have sent one of my kids through college for the amount of money I've spent here, and I'm not gloating or exaggerating. I'm just telling the truth. Anyway, moving along, I explained to her that the inventory is less than desirable, and we're here until Saturday, and virtually all of the inventory on the e-ticket rides are gone for all the remaining days of our trip. We leave on the 28th. One of the rides we focused on, as an example, was Tiana's Bayou Adventure. She proceeds to use her Disney iPhone, tells me it's her personal personal account, checks for the 25th today for multipass, and lo and behold, Tiana is there available to her. She stresses that it's her personal account. I don't think this is a good strategy for multiple reasons. Anyways, whatever. I open up my app and I check, and lo and behold, every single e-ticket in Tier 1 is sold out. She looks surprised, calls over a Plaid, and says she'll be right back. Plaid and I talk. Nice guy, and regrettably probably should have dealt with him from the beginning. He fully understood what was going on. Anyway, she goes in the back, comes out 5 minutes later, and explains to me that she was told in the back by IT the reason that this happens is because we were both checking at the same time. Now, forgive me, I couldn't help but start giggling and said to her, you do realize that you and I were checking at the same time, along with probably 10,000 more people out there, again, doing the same thing. I don't think that's a coincidence at all, ma'am. That's a reality. The inventory is the inventory. And she finally proceeds to ask me respectfully what it is that I want from her. I said, you're asking me that question? I paused and really thought about it. I said, okay, I'm prepared to spend upwards of $600 on your multipass and individual lightning lane system for the remainder of my vacation here. And what I would like from you is as follows. My choice for first and second tier rides for the system for each day here on and out. I stressed to her that I am not asking for something for nothing. I will gladly pay for it. But I just asked that inventory be added to my account to give me the tier 1 and 2 rides. Her response was that's not possible, that she was sorry and can't do that. Funny thing here is her Plaid employee was able to give me Pirate second tier and Space Mountain first tier. Go figure, right? They absolutely can do it. They just didn't want to do it. I said, okay, well then, we're done here. We're going to leave the rest of it there for everyone to peruse. This video has gone on quite a bit because this is a ridiculous situation going on at the Walt Disney Company. I do not understand why they seem to be fumbling the ball here so much. Getting rid of this and going back to paper fast pass is a better system at this point. I don't see anyone arguing with that. Actually, I can't even think of a good argument against paper fast pass other than the fact that they would have to put the system in. They wouldn't do crowd management as well, but they still had crowd management options with paper fast pass. Vash, what is going on at Disney right now?
Well, first of all, their digital infrastructure is completely inadequate. It has been inadequate for, I want to say 20 years at this point. I mean, and it's just a constant refrain. Cast members are disempowered or not empowered enough in order to do anything about it. They have to work with the same systems that we use oftentimes, and that leads to frustrations on both ends, quite frankly. And obviously, cast members can't do their jobs, or at least the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. Like I said, providing that white glove treatment. And Doc was completely right. I mean, look at this map right here. This is from Thrill Data. You can see just how many attractions were not available as soon as 8:45 a.m. it looks like, that mark of demarcation there. So many attractions weren't available until starting at 6 p.m., 8 p.m. So I think Doc was exactly right there. Got the data to back it up. Also, too, I think this is very sound and why all of this is happening. This is from Just Tim right here. Lightning Lane Multipass is awful. Same day availability is absolutely awful. The parks don't have the capacity to distribute 3 Lightning Lanes in advance. They didn't during FastPass Plus. They don't now when they're charging for it. I think that's absolutely correct. There is not enough capacity between these parks in order to provide a service like this in this fashion. That's why they've broken up with the tier system. They put it behind a paywall now, and they're still encountering the same problems. And now the stakes are higher because you did provide that paywall to get access to this system. This is a complete mess. It's not indicative of the Walt Disney Company that we knew, but, well, it's in keeping with the Bob Iger company for sure.
Yep. I'll also add here that it seems with Lightning Lane and Genie Plus, or whatever you want to call these upcharge services, right now 70% of the revenue of the Walt Disney Company is specifically flowing through the American parks, and 30% of the revenue of the entire company specifically through Walt Disney World Resort. So this is something where they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. All the things that Bob Chapek did that they want to blame him for at the company right now, they are the only things keeping the company afloat, because the things that Bob Iger did destroyed the entertainment brands of the company. So as much as they would like to remove Bob Chapek, master shipbuilder, from the parks, he's the one that's kept the company afloat at this point, and the only reason they have not had to go into bankruptcy restructuring. I'm not saying that's happening. No financial advice on this channel ever. But it's a pretty good defense of Bob Chapek to say, well, he's the only reason that as many people as are employed at the Walt Disney Company are employed at this moment, for better or for worse.
This is just a really awful showing by the Walt Disney Company, but I'm not necessarily surprised. They have foregone show, they have foregone quality, they've foregone their standards in pursuit of other things, basically, whether it be from a straight quarter-to-quarter revenue perspective or maybe those fifth key elements that we were talking about before, Jonas. Like, for example, like Fantasmic at Disneyland. Just heard a recent story that they've cut down the pyrotechnics for that show. And it's like, wait a minute, that's a direct revenue stream now with those dining packages, and you've cut down pyrotechnics for that show, making you all this money. It's almost like even if you pay more for these services, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll have a better experience. In some cases, it might actually be worse, as Doc Epcot found out there. He paid the extra money for Park Hopper. He paid the extra money to have a Lightning Lane service. It didn't make any difference. And in fact, it put him in a worse position than if he had foregone those systems.
Yep. Burn it down. I mean, Lightning Lane, not anything else here. That being said, we want to throw this to our commenters here. What do you think about this entire situation? Will you be going to Disney and buying yourself a multi-pass here? Or would you rather just watch Fifth Element and remember the nice multi-pass that Lilu has in that one? Anyways, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Plays for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.